Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you all for joining us for another great collaboration with the Addison Gallery of American Art. My name is Nicole Kramer, and I am the Programming and Partnerships Manager at Memorial Hall Library in Andover. I want to thank the libraries in Amesbury, Ashland, Rockport, and West Newbury for joining in today's program. I also want to thank the Addison Gallery of American Art for fostering great connections and allowing us to share their featured exhibitions and artwork with the wider community. The Addison Gallery is located on the campus of Phillips Academy here in Andover. It is free and open to the public, so if you are close to Andover, I encourage you to visit the gallery to enjoy their regularly changing exhibitions in person. Throughout today's program, please put any questions in the Q&A and any comments in the chat. We are recording the program, and everyone who registered will receive a link to the recording tomorrow. Now to introduce today's artist. We are joined today by Jennifer Cecere, the Addison Gallery's Edward E. Elson Artist in Residence. Jennifer has spent much of her career creating artworks that activate public spaces while challenging traditional perspectives on women's work. Long associated with the pattern and decoration movement, she is best known for bold installations that draw attention to handicraft by reimagining the domestic doily with the built environment. She will share about her work as well as the site-specific installations that are on view at Phillips Academy this spring. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today. I will now turn things over to you.
Thank you, Nicole. I also want to thank Jamie Gibbons and the Addison Gallery of American Art, Phillips Academy, and the Abbot Academy Fund. I'm really happy to be with you today. I'm sharing my screen. I hope what you're seeing now is a picture of me when I graduated from Abbot in 1969. I really enjoyed coming up to visit and install the pieces that are there now, and especially work with the students. I'll tell you a little bit about how I got there. I came to Andover from Richmond, Indiana, in 1965 as a prep. And I was an unlikely candidate. I had never been to Massachusetts, nor had anyone in my family ever been to Massachusetts. My grandparents immigrated from Southern Italy and settled in Pittsburgh to work as laborers on the Pennsylvania Railroad. A fluke brought me to Andover. A random guest at our house said, as I breezed in, that girl should go away to school. And my parents said, well, we don't know any. And they said, well, we do. And that was how I got there. Before I knew it, the station wagon was packed and I arrived. My interest in art began in Richmond. Before I came to Andover, I took classes at a neighbor's who had a garage where she set up still lifes that we could paint. And she also gave us Coke and potato chips. And we had to pay 50 cents. So it was really great. Here, I'm showing you a picture of me now, where we are now, which is the studio I live and work in New York City, in Tribeca. I've lived here since 1975 and worked here since 1975. It's an old warehouse. I was the first person to live here. No one had ever lived here before. When I got to Andover, here's some more shots of the studio. When I got to Abbot, we had to take visual perception, and I took painting also with Jenny Powell and photography with Wendy McNeil Snyder. And I went to the Addison, which was the first time I had ever been to a museum in my life. And it was the first time I saw original artwork. During my time there, here's some more shots of my studio. During my time in Andover, I sort of became identified with the arty crowd. And my work was shown in and around school and also at the Mount Herman Art Fair. So it really started to become my identity. When I came to New York, I needed money, and I had been a traditional easel painter at Cornell. I went to Cornell University, College of Art and Architecture, and I studied painting. So some friends I met said, well, you could sell your little paintings as textile designs and make some money. So here are some examples of little paintings that I did that became textile designs. They were very popular for about 6 months, especially with the Japanese for some reason. And it was great. But what happened was that after these are on wax masa paper, and you could maybe see that I've sprayed through laces. I started collecting laces and doilies as a girl in Indiana, and my grandmother embroidered our pillowcases and crocheted and, gave us gifts of her handicraft. So I started making these, and when I went back to painting, I just couldn't do regular painting anymore. I saw patterns everywhere, and I just became obsessed with patterns and actually fabrics and doilies that I collected and just anything that I had. I'm sitting at these tables now that have bins underneath that are full of laces and doilies that either I collected or people who know me for this, they give me their laces and doilies when they don't know what to do with them. What you're looking at now is a shot of a room at PS1, MoMA PS1 in 1979. So this is what happened after I started doing the textile design. I started using fabrics in my work, either collaging them like you can see on the sofa, actually making little vignette things like of domestic interiors, like the window with a table and drapes. And this is the entrance. The screen here is the entrance to my room. Alana Heiss bought PS1, which was an actual school, from the city of New York for $1 and kind of turned it over to artists. So I was given an entire classroom, former classroom, to do what I wanted, which was unheard of, really. So my radical move, I think, was to take objects that were associated or make objects that were associated with domestic interiors and bring them into an institutional space. Minimalism was very popular at the time, and this work was, I think, because of also the materials and all the paint and the color and everything was just so antithetical. I apologize for the quality of these. These are old scans from slides. These tiles on the floor you see are made from ceiling tiles, tin ceiling tiles, and were meant kind of to be a comment on the work of Carl Andre, who put plates of metal, untouched by human hands as much as possible, arrange them on the floor or along the wall and floor as his sculpture. This is an archival photo from the MoMA PS1. You can go on their site and see these photos that I just discovered maybe 2 or 3 years ago, that they did actually take photographs and document it. I did the curtains on the windows even. This thing that you're looking at that looks like a big giant quilt opposite the couch, I actually did to hide the chalkboard. I continued on this path of making objects, sculptures that resemble domestic objects. I was very much interested in all this lace and needlework that women had done anonymously and were not really recognized for it. It's, a safe creative outlet. It didn't really compete with men. It certainly wasn't thought of as art. It was craft maybe. And when I came to Andover this time to do the installations there, I went down to the thrift store in town where I found some laces and doilies that had been marked half price because it occurred to me that I should get a few to show to students because they might not know what I was talking about. So they were still sort of undervalued. They were still like they were in the refuge bin there. I did not think of myself as a sculptor or making public art until 2009, when the curators at Socrates Sculpture Park in Long Island City invited me out there. And I was like, why are they inviting me? So we walked around the park and we had a couple ideas, and anyway, I decided I was going to make this giant doily 20 feet in diameter. So this doily is very much like the doily in size and design as the one that is on the facade of the Addison today. This was made with ripstop nylon, which I got on Canal Street. And I liked it because it was a little translucent. And Mark DeSuvero, I don't know if you know his work, he runs the park. It's really his park, his space. And so this was not a typical sculpture, but we did it, and I think it looked pretty great. So this was the beginning. And then I was asked to do many other installations of public art, public pieces after this. Also, the idea was to take something small and intimate, the activity that is like knitting or crocheting or embroidering, and blowing it up and making it very large and public, and putting it also in a public space, which I see as a very radical idea. Taking a domestic thing, especially in New York City and the built environment, you just don't expect to see it. And this was my way of calling attention to undervalued work by women, undervalued work by women artists, and maybe voices and stories that hadn't been equally represented in these arenas before. Okay, so now here we are at the Addison, and you can see how the doily on the Addison resembles the Socrates one. This one is made out of aluminum. It's about 1/18 inch thick. And when I came to visit, I saw the mesh on the window of the study center, and I thought, oh, this is like almost like we're going to weave this into it. It's going to become part of the facade, and that was the idea. So in this photo, it looks white. The thing about the aluminum is that the idea was for it to reflect out to the community, sort of announce the museum, have something on the outside, art on the outside of the museum, and to also try to bring people to the campus who might not have felt like they might be welcome there or comfortable there. So, and also the idea is that it would change with the light and the weather and whether the leaves were out. The leaves are probably much more out now since this photo was taken. Now we're down the hill to the Abbot Circle. These pieces were commissioned by the Addison to honor and commemorate the 50th anniversary of Abbot and Andover at 50. So the idea was to try to link the two campuses, and this piece is also made of aluminum, and to reflect the buildings around the circle, the history of Abbot, you know, and sort of create this dialogue between the two campuses that are now pretty much one. The real story, though, with any of these projects, I think, is how it all happens. And I love the installation of pieces. I think it's the most exciting time for me as an artist to see how it comes together. And I love the way the pieces look. I think they came out really great. Sometimes the photos are better than the actual thing, and I think in this case the pieces are better. It's just wonderful. So these are the installers, and they are putting together the piece that's on the facade, and it is like putting together a giant pizza. There are wedges, pizza-shaped wedges, and they've come up with a system of locking it all together and tying little screws to hold it in place. And then you'll see some brackets there, which we use, or they use, to hoist the whole thing up to get it onto the facade. This was a very long day, but very exciting. It was like 9 in the morning till I guess almost after 7 that we took them to get it up. And this photo I just love also because we have this man here from Marquette with this huge machine, you know, with the reflection of the doily. So it really sets up this kind of, you know, dichotomy between this very masculine thing, you know, machine and, you know, male dominant thing to like install this big doily. So they actually, you can see these yellow things there are things they use to hoist it up. Okay. And here we are. So it did take a couple tries to figure out, you know, how do you get it up there? But these guys really knew what they were doing. And you can see it took 2 different kinds of cranes. And I don't remember how many people, but many, to kind of get it into place. And then these cables, you can sort of see, were used to kind of tie it to the metal mesh of the facade. A very unexpected, wonderful thing happened when we went inside, because the reflection from the inside of the building was just really intriguing and very captivating. So this also changes with the light, and whether there's the screen down, like curtain sort of shim down, or it's open. And that also changes with the leaves and the shadows. And so sometimes you see patterns on the floor. This is in the study center. So I really like how this thing happens between the inside and the outside, and how it activates both spaces. You know, something I hadn't really thought of, to be honest. And let's see, here we are in front of Draper, which is on the old Abbott campus. And on the left here, you see the guys from Marquette who did all the installing. This was the next day. And I think that's Jim, yeah. And then here we are after we got it finished. And there's Allie Kremener and Rachel Vogel and me in the middle when we got everything kind of in place. So I guess that's pretty much it. That's really the story of these two pieces. How they're there really to honor um the legacy of Abbot and the contribution of Abbot to Phillips Academy, and undervalued women's work, the undervalued contribution of women and women artists. So I think if you have any questions, I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing kind of how these works came to be and how they ended up in place. That's a fascinating part of it. I did notice the installation from the inside from the study center uh, a few weeks ago when I was on the campus, and it's stunning from inside and out. So certainly worth the
Yeah.
visit. So feel free to put any questions in the Q&A if you have any. We did have someone who was curious, and I believe this was for the one on the outside of the building. What are the dimensions of it and how much does it weigh?
Uh, it's roughly 20 feet in diameter, and I think it's close to 300 pounds, but I don't know like exactly. But it's, as you can probably could have seen from those photos, it was pretty thin, right?
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Um,
it is interesting because it does change color with the light and everything. A lot of people thought it was white, but it just depends, on the time of day and everything.
um, Someone wanted to know if you work mostly in metal or textiles right now.
I work mostly in textiles. Um, I am working on a series that involve old tea towels that are calendars. And I like have one right here that's kind of a mess, but I can kind of show you. Um, these are just a series I've been doing, which I sort of sew into and cut and add lace and whatever I have to it, which changes the shapes of them. So it's kind of combining everything I've done. I only get to work in metal when I do public art and somebody else actually fabricates it. I'm not, I don't know how to weld, it's all inspired by laces and doilies. That's what I know.
Mhm.
Okay.
Um, and a few people wanted to know how long the pieces will remain on the campus and if the bench will stay or if they'll both find new homes eventually.
I can't really answer that. Um, that's kind of up to the Addison. I gave them the pieces. I mean, they own them. So, uh, hopefully they can have other lives, after they come down. I think the piece on the facade, was not designed to be a permanent piece. So I don't think anybody wants it there in a blizzard or, that kind of thing. But the bench seems pretty permanent to me, actually. It's pretty sturdy.
Yeah, someone was commenting about how they just love how large and festive the bench is. They said it's perfect for like lots of people to gather together, which is nice.
Yeah, I have to say, I had gone, I lived in Draper, that building behind the bench, for 2 years. And I don't know, it must have been subconscious or something. I mean, I had been back 5 years ago to the reunion, but I was really so pleased with all these little rosettes on the building and piping and the kind of rustication and it was just like, oh, it looks great there.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
really
it's
does.
perfect. Yeah.
Um, Someone was curious about how long it took you to make the one that's on the facade, or
Well,
well,
we did all this in record speed, actually. These projects can take years, but the people at the Addison and at Phillips Academy you know, I had a project manager and all these people working on it. I think, oh, I forgot to say how it all really started. I meant to. I had, Gordon Wilkins had invited me to put some work in the Women in Abstraction show that was in February, I think 2023, something like that. Anyway, I went up there for the dinner and I made some offhand remark about, oh, you should throw a doily over this place. And then Gordon wrote to me and said, oh, are you serious? Should we talk about this? So then, so then we'd start talking about it. And oh yeah, I meant to say all this. This is good. At first we were going to make it out of fabric. And I certainly struggled with it. So I was doing these drawings and I was just looking at it. I just wasn't liking it. And I thought about using color and I did the different blues for Abbot and Andover. And I just was like, and then I just went, oh, it's got to be metal. It's got to be metal. So we went with that, which was, I think, the right decision. So it was record speed. I would say maybe a year or so. I mean, you know, not a lot.
Mhm. Someone is curious if you ever did an installation at Edith Wharton's home in the Berkshires.
No,
Okay, I'm wondering if maybe they had seen something that
no. But she
something
was,
that
wasn't,
reminded them, maybe.
wasn't she interested in lace? I don't know. Maybe this person knows more than I do.
Yeah, feel free to comment again if there's
Yeah.
if
you
you
know,
have a follow-up on that.
yeah.
Let's see.
I think she had something to do with lace making, a lace making school, maybe, or something.
Okay.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
guess.
Um,
Maybe that's a good idea.
yeah. Inspiration. Take it wherever it is.
Yeah.
Someone asked if you're a crocheter and how do you see encouraging young people to continue these handicrafts that have kind of inspired you?
Well, I do knit and I can embroider. I'm not a very good crocheter, to be honest with you. And I can sew, although I wouldn't say that those are things that I'm very, very good with. I really am very much captivated by the patterns and the structure. Like, I think the thing about lace and doilies and all these things is they look very delicate. And they're actually structurally very sound and very strong. And I also was sort of interested in the whole idea that they were used to kind of hide, you know, defects or worn arms on sofas or whatever. And I wondered about, you know, the feelings of women, you know, whether it was a way to hide their feelings or, you know, deal with things, whatever, to sit by themselves, you know, and work on these things. It's just almost every culture has some sort of tradition of needlework.
Mhm.
It gets passed on from, you know, one generation to another. So I think it's a great thing. You know, but I was also interested in the whole idea of blurring the line between art and craft and what is
Mhm.
valued and not so valued.
This sort of ties into the next question. Um, Joanne asks, right now in the art world, there's a lot of interest in textiles, but maybe that wasn't the case maybe 20 years ago or so. How have you seen your work accepted and sort of change in perception over the last couple of decades?
Well, I would actually say, I don't even know if it'd be decades. I would say it's more recent, actually. There is a lot of interest in textiles now. And actually my computer is resting on a book, a catalog that was from the Bard Graduate Center called The Threads of Power about needlework. And but it has found its way into contemporary art. I think it's much more accepted. I also think that it's not just seen as something that women do. It's not so gender specific anymore. And no, I think it's great. I think it's great. And different iterations of that you see, especially when you go out to the galleries now. So, no, I think it's great.
Oh, we have a follow-up from the person who asked about the Edith Wharton home. She says there was an installation of giant spider webs, doilies in fabrics
Oh,
that were hung in the trees. And so I think
oh, nice.
it sparked that memory when she saw some of your art.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, and I think this is a good question to possibly end on, unless someone else chimes in. But what would be your dream project?
Oh boy. Well, I have to say, I really would love to do some more rooms, going back to the one example I showed of the PS1. You don't really get a chance to, well, as you don't get a chance to do big public projects either, but to do a whole room where you can uh use your, arrange these domestic objects, sculptures, whatever. I would really like to do that. Have a couple more stabs at that for sure.
Well, a few more have come in. Someone wants to know if you've seen the red dress traveling exhibit of an embroidered dress 15 years in the making, and showcasing women embroiderers worldwide.
Uh, I think I saw it on Instagram. I haven't seen it in the flesh,
Yeah,
but that's great. That's the kind of thing, that's getting attention, more attention now.
yeah. Bring inspiration to other people and
Right.
showcase the work. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good. I spent 17 years as a teaching artist for the Guggenheim Museum, and I worked in a school in Chinatown, and I always brought in sewing somehow
Mhm,
into my projects. So yeah, young people, whatever that, I tried to
mhm,
get it in there.
yeah. And speaking of kind of inspiration and where you find different things, what other artists are of particular inspiration to you right now, and what's kind of inspiring you at this point?
Well, I guess I'm always really shocked when I find, like, I always like the work of Louisa Bourgeois, and then to find that she, had grown up in this tradition of textiles or tapestry, that was in her background, and some of the work that she did using found materials or old dresses. There was a piece that was in the Guggenheim retrospective, I don't know how many years ago it was, called Pink Days and Blue Days. And it was kind of a cage-like structure with some dresses hanging in it. And some of the dresses were pink and some of them were blue. And anytime I would see any work almost by any artist that used some kind of fabric or domestic object, I became really interested in it. I was at the Parish Art Museum last week, and they had a show that was all different artists based on food, but they had this one piece by a woman who had kind of collaged and embroidered the what it looks like from the inlet to the ocean and had made these wonderful little swirly, I don't know how they were, stitches to sort of indicate waves and things. And I had never seen anything like it. And I think it was a very old piece, not a contemporary one, but it was amazing. And then there was a woman named Lori Lambert who had sort of done these photo kind of prints on fabric, a little bit of bark, and then she embroidered on it. It was like amazing. There's lots of stuff out there, I think.
Mhm, absolutely. Um, and I I'm really going to ask the last question now. What do you have anything that you're planning on working on next, or anything in the pipeline?
Well, right now I'm trying to get back into the studio work and finishing or moving on with this series of calendar tea towels, kind of about around years and things that mark time and important periods in my life and encompass kind of all the different activities like painting on fabric, embroidery, lace, stitching, creating objects almost out of these tea towels, not rectilinear painting. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Great. Well, I'm sure we'll all be looking forward to see what comes up next. Thank you so much for sharing the photographs of your work and the process and answering our questions. This has been great, and we really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks. Oh, allergies. Thank you. Thank you. I had a great time.